All right, we have the variola virus, also known as smallpox. I'm Jessica Cavalier, and this is September 30th, 2023, Bio 169, Fall of 23, Bladen Community College. How does smallpox enter the body? Just your usual routes. We got prolonged contact with someone, the respiratory tract, fluids from somebody, blood and other bodily fluids, and then we have scabs, nice scabs from an infected person. Also infected bedding. There is no other host for the smallpox virus. Humans are the only ones. There are other pox viruses, cowpox, insect pox, dolphin pox, and penguin pox, just to name a few. But for the smallpox, it is just us humans. There's several stages to the smallpox virus. Rash, pustules, scab stage. The incubation stage lasts about 7 to 20 days. The average is about 10 to 14. That's just the incubation stage. So from the initial point of contact to the actual time that somebody starts to show signs and symptoms. The initial signs and symptoms is just flu-like symptoms. Just don't feel like doing anything. Body aches, maybe some vomiting, and that lasts about 2 to 4 days. Then you have your rash. This is the early rash. It lasts about 4 days. This is red spot on the tongue. Those spots start to change into sores. They break open, spread throughout the mouth, the throat, which moves onto the face. Then it moves to the extremities, hands, feet. Then within a day, it moves throughout the body. Then the fluid starts to fill up the little rash, and then you move to your pustule stage and the scabs. This lasts about 10 days. And throughout everything but the incubation stage, they are contagious. In the pustule stage, they start to look like the little peas that everybody is familiar with in the pictures. After about 5 days, the pustules start to crust over and scab. This stage happens about after about the second week from the rash initially appearing is when they start to get scabbed over. And then eventually the scabs will fall off, and they are still contagious. The scabs themselves can also infect someone if they come into like a contact with a blanket that's got scabs in it or bedding. Once all the scabs have fallen off, there's no scabs left, then they are no longer considered contagious. But that is what once everything's gone. It's considered a respiratory virus because it usually enters the body through the respiratory tract, the mouth, nose. So they do consider it a respiratory virus. The tricky part about smallpox is that it binds with the interferon gamma, which is the immune system's way of fighting off viruses and other things that infect the body. And because it binds itself, it immobilizes the body's immune system. And therefore, the smallpox can reproduce itself and cause damage throughout the entire body. And that's one way it causes so much havoc and has been so deadly for so long. The last person to die from smallpox was a woman named Janet Parker. She was a woman from England. She was employed in the building with a lab They're not sure if she came in direct contact with somebody in a corridor in the lab portion, or if it was the airborne route through the ductwork. She started to become ill on August 11th. 4 days later, she started to have a rash on the 15th. And on September 11th, 1978, she passed away. Her mother was caring for her. She also became sick. Her mother did receive the vaccine, and her mother did survive the virus. Unfortunately, her father also became sick. He passed away from a heart attack. They never determined if smallpox played a part in that. They never tested him after he passed away, but they did not contribute his death to the illness. The history of smallpox, going back 10,000 years to the agricultural revolution, when we started to store food and grain. It attracted mice, critters, and that's where they think it all started, when we started domesticating animals as well. Egyptian mummies, they got them in the museums with pockmarked scars on their face. I believe it's Ramesses, one of those. I think it's Ramesses II that's got pockmarks on his face. Queen Elizabeth I, documented to be a survivor of smallpox, 1562, which was the whole point of her wearing the heavy lead makeup, the white lead makeup, which caused more damage to her skin, but she didn't know any better. None of them did back then. In 2008, which was 28 years after the eradication of smallpox, is when they discovered about the interferon gamma proteins. So, I mean, they're still studying it, the smallpox virus. And in the 20th century alone, they estimated, the World Health Organization, that between 300 and 500 million people had died from smallpox. And that was in the 20th century alone. So between 1900 and 1999. That's worldwide. So that's a lot of people. So there's 2 locations in the world that are registered to keep the virus. One's in Russia, one's in Atlanta, Georgia. So the current treatment, even though they're still studying it, there is no 100% foolproof treatment. There's antivirals available. I cannot pronounce their names. Not even going to try. But they've never been tested on a sick person because there hasn't been a need since 1978. Because smallpox is no longer naturally occurring in the world. Any outbreak would be man-made. So Kosovo, Russia, and Atlanta, Georgia are the 2 facilities who are responsible for smallpox. It was declared eradicated by the WHO in 1980. So after thousands of years, we now live in a world free of smallpox. Myths and interesting facts. Chickenpox is not in the same family. Chickenpox is caused by a strain of herpes, not pox. Not everyone is eligible for the smallpox vaccine. People with eczema, pregnant women, autoimmune disease people, chemo patients, they're excluded from the vaccine. I'm not sure why eczema. It may be because it's a skin disease. Smallpox vaccine does not last forever. People in the past, they were re-exposed to it, while in the community. So if someone had it while they were a child, Joe down the street had it again, or had it, so they were re-exposed to it when we are not. So say someone you know in the military got it, but he hasn't been re-exposed to it, so that vaccine has run its course. So if something, God forbid, were to happen, he would have to get re-vaccinated. So I found that interesting, that we would have to get vaccinated multiple times. VACA in vaccine, the base word in vaccine means cow, from Dr. Edward Jenner, who used cowpox as the base for the original smallpox vaccine and his inoculation therapy back in Europe. So I thought that that's a nice little tribute to the smallpox. Every time we get vaccinated or say vaccine, we're nodding our hat off to Dr. Jenner, who came up with the smallpox vaccine. So, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.